When I turned 5 and it was time for me to face the outside world for the very first time, I was too scared to do it without my sister. But by the time I was 6, I had learned to walk to the classroom on my own without my sister escorting me, and now we even live in different cities. When I was 6, I was constantly getting bullied by my classmates every day, and I thought that's how life was going to be for me, lonely and pushed away. But at 8, I had already a bunch of kids to call my friends with whom I still talk to date. At 7, I shifted from a small town to a big city. New school, new kids, new environment. The small fish in me gave up on leaving behind her mark in this big pond. But 10 years later, when she passed high school, she watched her name on the school board as the highest scorer of the year. When I was 8 years, a doctor told me due to a physical deformity, I would never be able to play sports, and I too believed him. I too believed it was impossible until the 10-year-old me went back to tell him that I won my first medal in marathon. As a 9-year-old little girl, I had my first experience of sexual harassment and child abuse. At that point, I couldn't muster enough courage to speak out, knowingly accepting the trauma to haunt over me for a lifetime. But at 10, I raised my voice for the first time to defend myself, to seek justice for the crimes committed against me, and since then, the fight for myself and the women around me hasn't ever stopped for a single moment. When I was 11, I got my lowest grades ever in maths, and I came home crying. I gave myself a verdict that day. I am a loser who will never be able to ace maths. Little did I know that at 17 I will choose such a career path for myself, which is heavily numerical based and are also known as the number crunchers. At 12, I encountered betrayal for the first time, and I was afraid to let go or trust a new person ever again. But over the years, I have learned to accept that people are not always what they seem to be, and you have got to rebuild your house no matter how many times it is broken down. I nearly cut open my thumb in half trying to cut a guava when I was 13 and vowed in front of my entire family that I will never set foot into the kitchen ever again. But right now, at 21, I will place myself right on top, above my mom as the best cook of the family. The 14-year-old me had her first love, which ironically ended up being one of the worst experiences of life, and rather than love, taught me about dishonesty, manipulation, and toxicity. But although at 14 I deemed myself unworthy of love, by 19 I had found love again, this time just as it was described in my favorite books. At 15, I struggled with the idea of self love and sadly found myself indulging in self harm. The 15-year-old me would have been surprised to find out I was applying medicine on my stretch marks at 18 just because I didn't want any scars on my body. At 16, I never thought I would be 17 ever, but I will be celebrating my 22nd birthday in a few months. I entered college at 17, and as soon as I did, I felt overwhelmed by my classmates. Without waiting for the exams, without waiting for the results, I placed myself right at the 707th position out of the 706 students in the batch. 3 years later, when I finally graduated, I found my name, surprisingly, within the first 12 on the list of those same 706 students. When I was 18, I had my worst battle with anxiety. I gave up. I lost. I felt pathetic as I couldn't get back to my usual self. But by 20, I was taking big decisions in tough situations. At 19, I lost my dad. And with him, my whole world collapsed. Even though technically I was an adult, I had never learned to take a single step without holding his hands. And it felt as if I won't be able to carry on anymore without him. But life played a cruel joke, and by 20, I was paying bills, doing taxes, buying groceries, and even using his tools to fix things around the house. I'm 21 now. I still believe myself to be a complete disappointment, as I have done so over the years. I'm unemployed. I have no strong sense of direction as to where I'm going in life. And every day I find myself falling even further behind people my age. But then again, that's not for me to judge. Since I will be celebrating my next birthday very soon, on the last month of this year, I will let my 22-year-old self to decide how big of a failure I was at 21.